What we've been waiting for so long is finally here, and we started the mystery knit-along for Stephen West's Twist and Turn pattern. I'm continuing with the Humans of Westknits. If you haven't seen it before, it's basically a compilation of interviews with knitters just like you, people who love knitting Stephen West. Some of them have knitted every design of Stephen West, and for some of them, it's their first knit-along. I'm going to continue this series throughout the knit along, and we're going to talk about the clues. So today's episode is going to be concentrated on clue number 1. When the first clue dropped, what was your reaction? Like, did you immediately print it out and start knitting? Did you watch the video first?
I immediately printed it out, or actually, I first saw it on Instagram that it was out, and I hadn't got it in my mail, so I was like, but I realized it takes some time to mail all of these out, and then I got it, and I printed it out, and I cast on, and I mean, the first part was easy, the I chord, and then I read, and I didn't understand anything. So then I started to watch the video, but I really didn't want to see the finished results.
Yeah.
So but I needed the video to understand what I should do actually.
You know what? I found the same thing, because it was sort of like either start looking for tutorials or go and see what Steven does. So I went for the reason, like just to clarify that I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah, I started doing it, and then I watched the video to see if I had understood, and I had. And then I had really planned not to watch the end of the clue until maybe right before this interview. But you know, people post it on Instagram and without the warning. So I saw it this morning, and well, it doesn't really matter. I mean, now I've done it. Now I know how it should be. So,
well, does it make you more excited to knit it or less excited to knit it?
More excited. I think this is the craziest thing ever.
Let's talk about your previous experiences with Steven. How did you find him for yourself?
Well, obviously, when you're following knitters on Instagram, you're kind of bump into him. But I think I was looking for a shawl pattern on Ravelry, just a small shawl pattern, and then I found one from him. And then the next thing I did was the slip extravaganza 2 years ago. And I did that as an MKAL. And that was really new for me. The colors and, well, everything. And then I was looking for a pattern for a large shawl for my son when he moved to his own apartment a year ago. And then I started on parallelogram, but it didn't look good. So I frogged that, and then I found jigsaw puzzle. And then I
heard you got
stuck to that.
How many of them did you knit so far?
Well, I have knit 6 of them, and I have plans for more. And my daughter, who started to knit like 2 years ago, she's on her 4th. Wow. So it runs in the family.
You guys should do a reunion and take a group picture.
Yeah, I think we will, because we give them to all other family members, you know. So it's really, and I never get tired of it. It's kind of all these combinations of yarns and colors that you can use. Right now, I'm thinking of a Christmas edition.
That would be fun. Well, yeah. What do you think changed in you as a knitter from knitting Steven's shawls?
I think that I'm more open to try new things, new techniques, and new color combinations. And I would also say that his tutorials and, you know, live instas and all that has also encouraged me. to well, to try new things. I think I would be a much more conservative knitter if I haven't met him
Well,
as a designer.
how did you go about colors this year? Did you step outside of your comfort zone, or did you go for like what you usually gravitate towards?
I would say something in both of it. My usual color palette is blues and purples and pink. But I also wear like what I'm wearing now, this dark brown cardigan. And I really needed a shawl to go with that. And I had decided that I should make the MKAL because I really thought I didn't have the time because I have other projects with deadlines in November. But then I watched your channel and then I was inspired. And I said, well, let's see. If I have yarn in my stash, then I'll make it. Okay. And so I found these yarns that I had bought for another shawl project. And then I had a third yarn that to go with it. So it's in these brown beige. It's not really, I mean, it's not out of my comfort zone, but it's not my usual colors either. So
Well, can we see them?
yeah, of course. So these are the ones I have. This dark brown is a merino single, licorice is called, from GD Aunt Yarns in Northern Ireland. And this is a merino silk. It's a little bit of green, beige, brown, something like that. It's really beautiful. I'm not sure that you can see it, maybe. And then as my accent color, which is actually not very accent as a color.
But it's interesting. That's an interesting combination, actually.
It's a light. These two were bought together.
Right. And they go brilliantly together. Yeah, it's I think.
Yeah, and they are dyed by a local dyer, and so this is also kind of light gray beige something, and this is mohair. So I'm going to use these two strands held together. So it's not a pop color, but it's a pop fluffy structure, I think so, and it will pop when you see it together with the other two. I mean, it's really
right.
They're really contrasting. So I think it will be beautiful, actually.
So are you loving the first clue so far, or are you getting tired of those cast-ons, cast-offs kind of?
Well, no, I'm not tired of it. It takes some time. So it's takes longer than I had hoped for, but now when I've made almost half of it, I would say that I know how to do it. So now I can do that when I'm a little bit tired, and I can do my lace projects when I'm more focused. So
well, I was just texting Martin because this is my first mystery knit along, but I have knitted Starflake. So I knitted Starflake probably in like 10 days tops, like from what I remember. And I remember first clue taking me no time at all. Like it was done in one day, basically. So I was texting Martin. I was like, is that typical that the first clue would take so long? Because there's no way anybody can do it in a day. Like it's actually, if people have life besides knitting, and even if they don't, it's going to take some time to finish the first clue. Like, what's your feeling about it? Because you've done some MKALs before. Like,
yeah, I would say now when I'm into it, I would say, and I've done, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the contrast color rows. So there are 8 more. I would say it's probably 8 hours knitting for me left of that. I will be able to do it before the next clue comes out, I'm sure, but it is some hours, yes.
Right. Well, as long as you enjoy all that time, I think it's all gonna be good, you know.
Yeah, and I think I'm enjoying it more now when I've seen what to do with all those cast on and cast offs. It's really
Actually
beautiful.
looks so cool. I'm actually like really happy about that part. Do you think it's gonna continue? Like, do you have any predictions about the second clue? Do you think it's gonna go like that, braiding straight into a cable? Like, what's your prediction?
Now, as we are casting off, I mean, I've read the pattern, so we are casting off. I believe that we are picking up along one of the maybe one of the sides, probably the one that's where we switch colors, because that's the ugly side. So the other one is a neat kind of I-cord. So I'm probably picking up something there, but and as for cables, I don't know. I have that feeling that he's kind of tricking us a little bit there. That we need a cable needle, but maybe not the usual way of using it for just for cables.
I was wondering about that. I would be interested
Yeah.
to see. Yeah.
I have a YouTube channel too.
I watched you yesterday.
Oh,
Thank you
did
so
you?
much for talking about me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. You did. And my channel, I started my channel, oh my gosh, I would say about 4 years ago. And it started as knitting because knitting was my passion back then. I had been knitting since I was a child. My grandmother, who I lived next door to when I lived in England, in Liverpool, my grandmother taught me to knit. She couldn't teach my mom because my mom was left-handed.
Right.
So she taught me. And funny thing, in this week's clue that we've been working on, I know Martin was moaning about the cast on method, using the cable method. That's how my grandmother taught me how to cast on.
That's interesting.
I had no idea that, I didn't even know it was called a thing. I didn't know it was called a cable cast on. To me, it was just cast on. This is how we cast on. And so I have no problem with it because, you know, and I had to teach myself later on in life how to do the other
Tail, yeah.
long tail cast on, which took me forever to figure out with all the fingers and which way does the yarn go.
Oh,
And,
interesting. Yeah.
you know,
Well, when I watched your channel, you mentioned that you are not in a rush to finish the clue by the next clue.
no.
I find it very refreshing because, you know, while Martin and I having our little competition here,
Yeah.
there are people who just don't have time or who like doing it for a couple hours, like when they have time, or doing other crafts like you do, like because you do multiple crafts, right?
I do. And that's just the thing. But for me, I love a good mystery. I'm a mystery about everything. I love reading mystery stories. I love doing mystery quilt-alongs. I love doing mystery knit-alongs. But for me, it's not about getting that clue and finishing it right away to wait for the next clue. It's just to see, like the whole, like now I know what this week's clue is and I'm working on it and I'm loving every second of it, but I'm now dying to know what next week's is. It's just the finding out for me. It's not that doing and participating. I don't care if it, like I did this one. This was my first one that I did, which is shawlography.
Yeah.
My lighting is absolutely horrible in here. So this is kind of like a purple and white, and I love white. Let me see if I can bring it up there. I love white in everything that I do. So I'm a white based person. And so I just loved doing that one. And it took me about 4 or 5 months.
Right.
It was just the process of stitching it that I loved.
Well, you mentioned that you were very hesitant to try Stephen West patterns.
I was, because to me, he was so out there crazy. And I'm not an out there crazy kind of girl. Like, I love a mystery. I love to, you know, to investigate and find out things. But again, I thought his whole, but I mean, once you started working on this, and the nice thing about doing a Stephen West chart pattern is that you can use your colors then. You don't have to go as crazy wild out there as he does.
Right.
And when you then knit something in your colors and your style, it becomes a different shawl.
It becomes yours.
Yeah, you know, so I really liked that about it. But, you know, going back, I do several crafts on my YouTube channel. Mondays is all about the knitting. Wednesdays is about the cross stitch, and which I've done since I was 17. And quilting is new. I've only started that when the pandemic started. So I found my podcast was getting too big, having it once a week. So that's why I broke it down into the 3. And then if you are only interested in the knitting, then you just tune in every Monday.
Right.
But if you want to see all the others, then you tune into the others. But I just, in all of them. So what I have to do, because I do so many crafts, and I can't just sit and watch TV at night and do nothing. I have to be doing something. So I have set up my calendar that Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays I cross stitch. Then on Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays I knit. And each project has its own set night. So Thursdays is twists and turns.
Right.
So I know I'm not going to get it all finished in the 1 week, and I don't care.
Well, how much progress did you make so far?
Good. I've got up to I got quite a ways, I think, already. Toby, could you get down? Oh, this is Toby, by the way.
Toby.
Which is where we get the Tobyknits from. Okay, Toby, you have to sit down there. Yeah. And he used to always introduce my knitting videos with me, but I moved my craft room to the basement, and he doesn't like the basement. So he doesn't very often come down here.
Well, I'm glad we got the star appearance.
Yeah, I think I'm on row 25. So spoiler alert.
I love that. So you went with white again.
I went with white again. Yeah. So I'm going with white and then the gray. And then this is going to be my pop of color.
That's going to be great. I actually think it's somewhat similar to what Martin did last year with his show.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that, because as soon as he was showing on one of his videos, his previous knits too, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's almost the same color he did last year.
Well, are you going? Did you go with the kit, or did you go with?
No, I kind of went half stash, half not stash. It definitely wasn't a kit. So I looked to see what I had in my array of fabrics, and I had. And this is the yarn I'm using. It's a heritage yarn. Mm-hmm. So I had the white and I had the gray, but I only had one each. So I looked at them and I thought, I definitely am using white. So there'll be I'll go out and buy another white. And I didn't know if I wanted that as the pop or what other color. And then I thought, okay, I'll go with gray. Because when I realized most of the quilt was going to be in the 2 colors, with the pop coming in and out, I thought gray and white would be lovely.
Right.
So I ended up going out and buying 1 more of each yarn and the red, because I knew then I wanted something to really stand out. And you know.
Well, you mentioned that you've been knitting all your life. Like, has Stephen taught you anything?
Oh, yes. Quite a few things. He taught me to not be frightened of colors, because I usually knit one thing in one color, and I don't typically use lots of different colors. And if I do, I do a lot of sock knitting. I will use usually something that's already pre-striped. So, you know, I didn't use a lot of different colors, and I certainly haven't twisted and maneuvered stitches and carried yarn and all that kind of stuff. So he's taught me that. I learned the Weave and Steven method, which is a game changer. And not to be frightened of what you're knitting. And like, even so, last night I got to the end of the row where, you know, you bind off the little pieces, and I looked at it and I thought, I'm not sure, because when I knit, I have to have a pattern to follow in my head, my own head. So for example, it took me until now to get comfortable with not having to look at the chart.
Right.
Because now I know where my increases go. They go either side, but inside that V sort of shape of the chevron, maybe they go there. Before I was like, knit one, slip it, make one, knit. Like I was, reading the whole chart, but now I'm comfortable. I know where the increases go. I don't have to look at the chart. And so I watch my work. I look at my work, and that's when I know when I've made a mistake, because I read the yarn,
Right.
the fabric.
And I think it's actually very important, especially for new knitters, to learn how to read their knitting, because that's gonna save you so much trouble, like finding those mistakes.
That's right. And I think I'm a bit obsessive compulsive because I count when I knit in my head too. So I know, for example, that there'd be 8 stitches before we did the double decrease, and then there should be 8. Well, there's 7 plus the make one becomes 8. And so that kind of thing I would count along. And then when I got to the ends, I thought, I think I have 1 less stitch here, because all the rest would have had 8. This should have 8. Why does it not have 8?
Right.
And then I realized on row 9 and 10, I had not just knit, I had done the decrease. So the start of this row 9, my second repeat, I guess, I had to make an extra stitch either end,
Right.
to make sure I had enough. But I wouldn't have noticed that had I not been counting.
Do you think 1 year, sometime in the future, you'll go with some like crazy neon colors and do totally Steven kind of thing?
I don't know. If someone gave me a kit and said, here, do this, then I might. But if I had to go out and buy it, I probably wouldn't, because he's not my thing. I did make one other Stephen West item. I made his, I think it was called Out of Space or something, a sweater that he had, which is very, kind of crazy. And my son had come back from Iceland with some yarn for me, and I made it out of that. And it's like black and white and purple and pink, and it's like, I think I've worn it once. But it's kind of fun. But
do you have any predictions for next clue? Do you have any guesses from like where are we going with that?
I feel like the clue that we've just done is going to be a center, and that it's going to be those little things that I feel like that's going to go that way. And I feel like we're going to start working on one side. I feel like it's going to be a V, but with wings. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like that's the center, and we're going to go out on one side. And I'm pretty sure we'll probably do some short rows.
Well, I can't wait to see what that next clue
I know, it's gonna be.
How are you liking the first clue?
I'm really enjoying it for the fact that I've now got it memorized, so that now I can just sit there and knit it. Like,
so funny, because I was trying to time myself, because Martin is all about math, and he was like,
yeah,
the whole thing how he's like timing himself. So I was trying to time myself at the beginning, and it was like somewhere upwards of 45 minutes per like 4 lines for 4 rows of it, because I was like, I kept looking at the pattern and like reading the pattern. And this morning I decided to time myself again, because I finally memorized the pattern. Me 32 minutes to do those 4 rows, so it's probably like a little over an hour per repeat, and I'm 4 repeats away from the finishing, well, 4.5 away. So I figure like it's about 5 hours of knitting is still ahead of me. Sure, I'm gonna finish today because I have 3 interviews, but we'll see where. Well, is there like something, because you're relatively new to the whole Stephen West world, right?
Yeah.
Like
I've been knitting, crocheting, etc. for years, and it's one of those things that when I actually discovered his patterns, I was like, oh yeah, I've seen those all over Ravelry, but somehow they'd never, I don't know, jumped out at me or whatever. And then I'd seen someone on another knitting vlog hold up a thing and go, I made this. It was a Stephen West, and I went, oh my god, I love that, I need one. And it was probably just her combination of colors or whatever. And then when I hit it, I was like, oh my god, I love all his patterns when you actually start looking. And this was only about 6 months ago, and I just picked shawlography because it was just one that I really liked. So it's the first time that I'd used yarn that came in the hand cut skein, and I don't have a yarn winder, so I had to sit there and wind the whole thing, you know. So by the time I got started, it was August, and then everyone's getting really excited for the next MKAL, and I'm not going to do it. Oh no, I've got shawlography. I'm not going to do it. And then next thing I know, I'm like, no, I'm going to do it. Like,
what pushed you over the edge?
I think it was the excitement of everyone choosing colors and like sharing the colors and things. I was like, because I work as an artist and color is the thing that I love, and I'm like, oh, look at all these cool color combinations, I want to take part. And then because I'd started in August, I was like, well, I've got a month, and shawlography technically was done in a month last year, so I thought, well, that's a challenge for me to then get that done in a month so I can start. And although I'm wearing it, I'm going to not lie, there is a tiny bit at the end I have not finished that's hidden off the bottom of the screen.
Did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy knitting it?
I did, yes, because I'd knitted something before that was a shawl that just sort of got bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was the same sort of series of repeats. And that took me 3 years to knit because I kept putting it down. Gosh, I just can't do it anymore. And I thought, well, the Stephen West, they change every like however many rows. So even if I'm in a bit that I don't like, I'm like, well, you only need to do 10 more rows and then you're on another bit. So that was what got me excited. And the thing I picked about the shawlography was I like the idea of these bits at the edge that's like the short rows,
right,
that was like right at the edge, because the idea of doing those big long rows around some shawls, just because I just finished this project that was so big at the end, that I was like, I like this idea of, yeah, it's big, but it looks like it's going somewhere because you've got all these short bits. And as you see, I'm still not done, but
well, did you learn something new with shawlography, and are you learning something new with this shawl?
Yeah, with the shawlography, because it was all I've done complicated color work and stuff before, but it was how simple he makes the color work, that you're actually only working with one strand at a time, but you get this thing that's got 2 colors that interweave around another, but you actually only do it 1 row at a time rather than holding yarn in multiple fingers and all over the place. And with this MKAL, I've decided to not look at the pictures. So I'm doing it based just on the written pattern, because usually I'd go and go, what looks cool, you know, and I already know the final product and I can start to work out probably how they did it. Whereas with this, I'm like, just got to read what Stephen writes. So it's line by line, it starts to grow. So I've got a rough idea of what it's going to look like, of course, because I've read the pattern, I've read the end of it. So I have a rough idea of how it's going to work. But until I get to that bit, I don't actually know. And that's quite interesting to me.
I mean, do you have any sort of predictions of where it can go from there on the Clue 2?
I don't know, because I'm not sure if it's going to be like a big arc like it's been before, or if he's going to maybe stick 2 things out the side and this is going to be like a core central. I think he might go somewhere different, because the past few years have been these like classic kind of semicircular. So it might be more of like a scarf shape with a bend in the middle, or I don't know. It's quite fascinating, because this is a really interesting shape. From what my brain is telling me, the final product will be a really interesting sort of this shape rather than a semicircle or whatever it's been before.
Right. I mean, you're an illustrator, so you're an artist yourself. Do you think discovering Stephen West, discovering him as an artist, influences you somehow as an artist?
Yeah, I guess, because it's like this more is more, especially with the shawls. The yearly shawl especially is more is more. And like sometimes I'll sit there thinking, when I'm drawing, going, oh no, maybe it's done, maybe I'm working too hard, maybe I'm putting too many details, and I'm like, no, you can add some more details, add some more color, try something different. But I mean, the reason that I knit is that I like trusting someone else. Like, it's going to look cool at the end because someone else has already done the work. All I need is some colors, and I can sit there for a few hours. I don't have to think of anything. I don't need to make anything up. But with Stephen as well, it also gives you that opportunity to try really cool color combinations, because you know whatever combination you do, it's probably going to make something really cool at the end, you know.
Right. Well, let's talk about your colors. What did you pick for this year's
well, last year I went for this very bright combination, so I've gone really subtle this year. So like the bit I'm working on right now is this it's like a coral and a raspberry kind of color, and I've got greeny gray color to go with. So it's not like hugely bright and colorful like a lot of people with the major pot, but I was like, oh, I'm going to go with the pinks with this little bit of green on the side as just something completely different. especially to add to my wardrobe as something that's not luminous. Like, I love this one, but to have something that's the same, I'm like, well, I would wear it with the same kind of outfits. I want something completely different, you know.
Right. I mean, is there any chance of you gifting it to anybody, or like you making it for yourself 100%?
The likelihood is I'm making it for myself 100%, because I don't think anyone around me would go, oh my God, I want one of those. Like, they all go, oh, they're amazing knits and we love that you wear them, but please don't give us one. Like,
what about Steven like makes you want to knit his patterns?
One of the things is I saw some of his videos before I committed to buying one of the patterns, and it was this really chill thing of like, if you've got one stitch too many, it's fine, just combine two and it'll be great, you know. And because I knit as an aside to my main like artistic thing, I like that if it's gone a little bit wrong, you can fix it, no one's going to see, rather than having to be so precise all the time. And I really like that, which is like, I think it was after the first row of this, I had the I-cord and I got to the end and I was like a couple of stitches short. I'll just stick a couple more in, rather than, oh no, I've got to go back and add more to my I-cord. And, you know, it's just that really chill atmosphere, but also that really excitable, like, yeah, it's going to look great no matter how you do it. I love that.
Do you have any hesitation that it's going to look great?
No. I think great is relative, because there's some of the stuff that I look at that he's done that I go, oh, that's not really my style or whatever, but as a piece of art, as a piece of fabric art, they're still great. Like, as you said, that might be the only reason that maybe I get to the end and go, do you know what, I really don't like it for me, but like, I'll hang it somewhere and look at it. Like,
yeah, there is some wall space over there. Right?
Yeah, there's some wall space to hang something on, or, you know, it'll look really cool every time I open my wardrobe, even if I never quite wear it, but I doubt that I'll not wear it, you know. that was my thing, is if I go for colors that I like, it doesn't really matter what the design is at the end, because that's the thing I do notice with the shawlographies and stuff, is everyone gets all these lovely photos with it all draped. I'm like, that's not how you actually look at it. You look at it wrapped around the body, around the neck, you know. So at the end of the day, it's how it looks when it's actually round you. So I could maybe look at the final piece of fabric flat and go, oh, you know, I'm not so keen on that. But when you actually wrap it around your neck, you go, oh my God, that looks amazing.
It's funny because my son came home and he likes the star flakes a lot. Like, this is his big shawl that I knitted from Steven West. And he did this reel for me where he threw the shawl around him and it just like naturally wrapped and was like really cool on the shoulders. And it was like, for the first time, I actually saw how it can be like wrapped like that, you know?
Yeah.
It's interesting how it does look different when it's on you versus just holding it.
Yeah. And like, I really enjoy knitting them because they're so different, but it's like, this is the one that took me 3 years and it's just stripes. And when you actually wear it, it looks amazing because of the way all the stripes interact, but knitting it was horrific. So, you know, you get to the end and you got like 500 stitches and it's just garter stitch, and every time you do a row it just gets bigger again. And
I feel like under pressure told that you're not gonna finish the clue on time this time because you're doing it as a part of the knit along.
I'll just avoid the internet, I guess. Like, if I don't get it done, I'll just keep gathering the clues, and there's obviously the forum to look at where you can get a bit of help if you need it, and I like that they have an area that's no photos, and I've got a friend that's doing it and they're behind where I am, so I would like to get it finished on time, but also I have a job and things that in life that I might not get it done, but I don't think I'll be too far behind if that's how it is, which is exciting because I need something to keep my brain going on it. Otherwise I'll just put it down. It'll be like 2 years time, I'll look at it, oh yeah, that thing that I was working on. Like,
well, you're doing multiple fiber arts, you're crocheting, you're doing like different things. Is it easy for you to like work just on this project for now?
Yes, because that's what I do. I hyperfixate on one hobby at a time. So although I can crochet, I can sew, I cannot do all these things, I'm not doing all of them at the same time. So I don't do like a little bit of knitting and then a little bit of crocheting. I'm either doing a knitting thing, and when that's done, I'm doing a crocheting thing, and when that's done, I'm doing a sewing thing. When that's done, I'm maybe playing a video game for 4 days. It's I kind of have this very hyper fixated like thing. So at the moment it's knitting, and part of that is the excitement of doing something at the same time loads of other people are doing cool things.
Right. I have a question. Like, so you reached out to me to be part of the series, and you told me that you watched like the previous episodes of Humans. What attracted you to the series? Like, what made you wanna reach out?
Well, partly I've been really enjoying listening to it while I knit, so it's just quite fun to get involved in that. But I really like how they've got a huge range of people doing it. And some of them are knitwear designers, and some of them are just people like me who just like to pick up some knitting needles and make a thing. And as you said, it's the Humans of Westknits, so it should sort of show a huge range. And like the yarn that I'm using is like pre-balled, and there's loads of people with these lovely skeins of hand-dyed yarn, and I think they're great to look at, but I don't have, because I'm not putting as much time into it at the moment, like, I can't really afford to put my money into that at the moment. But I like the idea that I'm coming along with these balls and still doing this really cool project, just a different part of it. And I would love to put more money in, but I put my money into the shawlography like a few months ago, and I've already kind of finished it. And I'm like, oh.
Well, that's what I liked about this year's kits, actually, when I saw them, because there were different kinds of materials. There was some like linen, some cotton, some wool, and there were also all different price points. So I found it very refreshing that there is like different levels of affordability, for different budgets.
Yeah, and like this is where like my artist brain starts to take over, because once I've made like the shawlography, I've already gone, well, what if I made it again, but I did this instead? Or rather than just doing it with the fingering, because my shawlography is made with lace weight yarn, so it's really light and airy rather than the fingering, so it's a lot smaller and lighter. And mostly because, again, that last shawl that took me 3 years, I think traumatized my brain because it's massive, and it was double knit, and it's huge and it's heavy, and it's great for winter. But I was like, I'm going to go the complete opposite. I'm going to go lace weight. We're going to get really tiny needles, and we're going to make this shawlography. It's going to be great. Whereas I think this time's the first time I'm actually using the yarn that Stephen's actually requested on the pattern.
I like it about his patterns because, like, I did Pierre shawl in fingering versus decay that he recommends, and I just added a few extra repeats of the pattern, and it looks spectacular in that. So it's like, I like the fact that his patterns can be adjustable to different, like whatever you have left over. So whatever you have in your stash, actually like that a lot.
Well, I knitted a couple of weeks ago one of his painting bricks hats, just with loads of scraps that I had. And that was really great that I could just reach into my scraps bag and go, well, what stripe do I want the color to be next? And I don't have enough to make like a painting brick shawl out of that, but I could make a really cool hat by just shoving a bit extra yarn in. And I think there's one of the brioche hats that's just like each line of brioche is a different color. And I'm like, oh, I quite fancy that one at some point. Because I like to jump between really big projects and a hat that I can maybe knit in a few hours.
I like it as a palette cleanser.
Yes, or even when I'm in the middle of a shawl and I'm like, I am so fed up that this thing is not finished yet. I want to finish something, so I go and make something really small, and then I get that kind of little rush of endorphins. Go, yes, I've made a thing. Now let's get back to the thing you really want to finish.
You have your own YouTube channel. Are you planning to cover the MKAL there?
I will do it kind of in my updates. So where I normally do about every 2 weeks, I will maybe do a little more frequently kind of in between. It's always a little dicey, like how much to share and whether I'm keeping up or not, right?
Are you concerned with that? Like,
the rate I'm going is,
Are you nervous that you're not going to be able to keep up? Like, is that something that stresses you out?
No. So last year was my first, the first time I did the MKAL, and I really, you can't be in the knitting world and not know Stephen West. But to be honest, the designs, while I appreciate them, I always thought there's just no way I can knit that. I'm not that accomplished of a knitter. And last year I was watching everybody get ready for shawlography, and I was like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And I really had I was trying to finish my first cardigan, and, you know, I kind of had 2022 planned to be like the year of the sweater. So I'm like, I'm just not going to get diverted by this, you know, thing I probably can't knit anyway. And then, I mean, literally, it might have been a day or two before, I was like, and I was watching his video where he was doing the color combinations. And there was some that were more subtle. And I was like, okay, well, wait, hey, I have yarn like that. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe I should do it. Like, what do you have to lose, kind of thing, right? It's only knitting. And so, and I thought it's a very busy time of year. I'm like, I won't be able to keep up. But I have to tell you, the first 2 weeks, turns out I might be a little competitive. So I tried, and I did well till we got to the big, you know, triangular piece, and I got a little behind. And then my brioche section, I like row 4, I messed up, and I just could not figure out how to fix it, but it was enough that it bothered me. And I had a lifeline, thankfully, but I kind of put it aside, and then I went back to it a couple weeks later, and then finished up, you know, pretty quickly after that. But so no, it doesn't, because but I will try at least to be somewhat caught up. I mean, I've got a lot of work stuff, and I'm traveling next week, and so it'll be difficult. And I'm not really where I should be this week, because I finished this. I wanted to get this one kind of to a stopping point, you know, and but you know, I think just having the fun of being involved in it and see what other people are doing and the community around it, which is really how I kind of got into the whole YouTube space in the first place. I just thought, you know, nobody will probably watch, but, you know, and it's a tiny little channel, but it's just the people that I've met, you know, virtually, and I just love the community around it. So it's just kind of fun to participate.
Well, I'm going to put the link to your channel in the description of this video. So guys, go subscribe.
Oh, thank you.
Let's help each other grow. Well, I'm sort of like, what my experience was this, because this is my first mystery knit along. Like, I've never done a mystery knit along, like, you know, officially. I've knitted a bunch of his shawls, but I've never actually done a knit along. And there is 2 parts of me. One is that I understand that, like, I'm an engineer, so I like to calculate everything, right? So I already guessed that it's Sunday morning, and I have 5 more hours of knitting ahead of to finish this first clue, right? So I understand, the logical part of me understands that, like, by next clue, I can like knit half an hour a day and be done.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I go on Instagram and I see all the pictures and all the spoiler alerts, right? And I'm like, oh my God, these people are ahead of me. And that sort of like pushes me to like, and I have interviews to do, and I have editing to do. I don't, you know, and then there's like the rest of the life. And I'm like, how am I going to do this, right? Do you find this communal aspect of it? Do you find like it's putting more pressure on you, like personally, or it brings more fun into your life?
So I really try. I have a fairly stressful day job, and for me, this is really my kind of my meditation, my creative side. So and I try not to stress about knitting. And actually, I think this is what I also loved about going, you know, last year's, and, you know, Stephen's style, and if it's not perfect. And I think that really developed me as a knitter, and I mean, that helped what I love about knitting. So I don't generally try to let that. Now, I've done the same thing as you. I'm like, oh my God, how can they be that far? I'm so far behind. I got all this to do. And, you know, so I'll put some pressure on myself, but if it gets to the point where it's like, okay, well, I can't do it, I'll finish it. You know, it won't be too long after, and that's okay too. So I try to remember it's just knitting.
Well, you told me that you're also a spinner and you dabble in yarn dyeing. What did you decide to do this year for your yarn choices?
So I last year I did totally stash, but this year I really thought I really kind of want to spoil myself and get a kit. And unfortunately, I got home from work late that day, and of course they were sold out. I really liked the look of the I think it was the Rune set by Urban Pearl. And so I kind of had that in my mind. And then I actually, you know, so then I just had to go on and purchase some. So I actually went to Ruby and Rose's website. And my base color is called Log Cabin Getaway.
Mm-hmm.
And the contrast is Party Dress. And the my pop color is Twilight.
Oh, that's so pretty.
And I have to say, you know, it's hard to pick yarn online. And when I got them, when I first got them, I kind of was like, oh, I don't know. And I'm not really a blue person. But I'm like, you know what? I picked it. I'm going to go with it because just trust the process, right? So, and these two are singles, which I've never knit with. This one's a, you know, standard, you know, plied yarn, but so I'm finding that a little bit interesting, but it is giving it a bit of a texture that's different. So I think that's kind of fun. So I'm gonna roll with it. So this year I was semi-kit, but next year I will know, like get it in my ready, pick it as soon as it opens.
Do you think one year you'll spin your own yarn for the knit along?
I would love to do that. So I'm processing. I have a closet full of several fleeces. I've got a really big Jacob fleece, a little smaller Jacob fleece, and I've got several Shetland fleeces. So I would love to have my production be enough to be able to spin and knit from it. The Jacob I'm processing, I am envisioning, I'm spinning that to do a half shawl, and like to kind of show that, you know, on my channel. I like that style. So, but it would be really fun to spin some up and maybe, you know, even I'm amazed with folks who've, you know, managed to pull together their dyeing, you know, watching Karin of a Yarn Tale go through her dyeing episodes was really fun. So
when you see other people's pictures, do you ever like, oh my God, I wish I took this color, like combination?
You know, when I was doing this one last year, I really sort of, I think I did the same thing. I saw him do the video of the different options and, you know, having these that are super bright. Like I can't envision myself ever wearing neon, though I love to see other people do it. And some of the brighter colors, like this is a, you know, like this is a little out of my, but you know, it's good to have I wear a lot of purples and reds and such. So it's not that I don't like bright, but yes, I do quite admire other folks. I don't think I have generally trouble pulling colors together. It doesn't like stress me out like I hear some folks talk about. But I do admire sometimes. And actually, I have to say a couple of them that I really admired last year that were the ones who did like these either natural or gradient, or there was one that was almost, I mean, it was so subtle, it was hardly any color at all. And that in itself was beautiful because it, you know, of course, this was so textured. So like you could get away with that if color was not your thing. And I think that's what's so interesting about seeing it is it just opens your mind to so many possibilities and how the design will show off. I mean, I was listening to one of your interviews yesterday, and y'all were talking about how, you know, it can fit from a 20-year-old to a 70-year-old and somehow it works. I mean,
right.
That's phenomenal.
I mean, are you a fan of mystery part of it?
I do kind of like the mystery part of it. I sort of, so when he releases the clue, I really do enjoy watching his tutorial on YouTube. I think that is super helpful. I mean, I could probably follow the pattern fine, but I do it sort of step by step so that I'm not seeing the whole thing. And then I'll get to about where I am now. And I did yesterday, you know, watch the end of clue 1. So I kind of knew where we were going by that point. But that first couple rows, you're like, what on earth? So it's kind of fun to see, you know, what I'd love to. I can't imagine how his mind works. It's got to be this whole 3D and just seeing design and everything, and that's just so fun.
Well, you have any predictions as to where we're going in the second clue?
No, I mean, after seeing where I'm like, you know, not to have too many spoilers in there, but no, I can't imagine. I sort of wonder if, you know, of course, cables, folks have just about everybody's predicted, and that might be a red herring with that cable needle, right? But then in my mind, I somehow can vision this, and I guess it's like a cable, right? This movement of even ribbing, right? That might twist and turn, that would look really cool. But having seen where we're at the end of clue 1, or where I will hope to be at the end of clue 1, I don't know. It's just, but that's fun. I enjoy that part of it. Yeah.
How is your clue 1 going?
Not too bad. I've done, I'm halfway, I would say.
Yeah. I love your colors. It's beautiful. What's your pop color?
My pop color is like a chestnut.
Oh, that's going to be beautiful. It's like a very subtle, basically.
Yeah, I really love autumnal colors, and so I just actually before I came on, I was looking at how he kind of twists it, and I just wanted obviously I've watched the video, but I just wanted to refresh my memory how to do it, because I tried to do it, it wouldn't work, and I thought, watch it again, Linda.
Well, are you enjoying it so far? Like, how are you finding it?
I'm fine. He is a brilliant teacher. I mean, this is my first ever Stephen West knit along, mystery knit along, especially. I have done other knit, a knit along, but this mystery one, when I found out it was, I love cables. I've been knitting a long time, so I really do like doing cables. And when he said a cable needle, I thought, I've got to jump in on this one. Definitely got to jump in. I got to, push the boat out and try something new. So I'm really, really liking it. And when I was doing it, and when you first, I mean, I've never done an I-cord before, so I've, and then and then you were casting on and casting off, and I'm thinking, oh my Lord, what the heck's that's going to be like? And then obviously at the end, and then when he showed you at the at the end of the clue 1 video, and it just looks amazing. And I thought, oh, that is going to look really nice in my colors too.
I think so. Do you have any prediction as to where we're going from here on the second clue?
I'm hoping from what this piece is going to be like when it's finished, it's kind of where are you going to pick up the stitches to move on to the next, and whether the cables are going to come in then, or if there are going to even be cables,
right?
I'm
curious about that. I'm sorry.
I know.
It's going to keep the suspense going.
Yeah, I mean, if he wanted us to continue on from this part, I don't think he would make us bind off. So it's going to be really interesting, unless he brings it in from the sides. Do you understand where I'm going with it? We've got the kind of the center, maybe this is the centerpiece, and the sides are going to bring it out that way. So I'm thinking it's not going to go up. I'm thinking maybe out to the sides, because his shawls from over the past few years have been quite wide. So
right.
Maybe he's going to incorporate it outwards from the sides.
When did you discover Stephen West for yourself, and like what attracted you to him?
I think it's his I was introduced first by a good friend of mine, Gina from Knitting Turnpike. She does Stephen West's. She's done Stephen West's all the years I've known her. So I've known her about 3 years. So the 3 years, and I love his play with colour. I come from an arty background. I did mixed media before I actually joined the fibre community. So I love his take on the geometry of his shawls, and the different shapes and the colours, and the way he uses the colours as well. That's what really attracted me. And
are you afraid of anything in this whole mystery process? Like, is something scary?
I'm not actually. I'm just kind of gonna go with the flow. It's my first one, and there's such a good support system within the fibre community as a whole, and I'm sure if I do get stuck. I'm sure that, you know, I mean, he said, and his videos are so detailed that you can rewind and play again, and you know, so that is I would say I kind of, in all the years I've been knitting, I've always been a pattern follower, and I've followed patterns many years, and then it's only kind of, I would say, the past 4 or 5 years that I've actually gone onto YouTube to find out how to do a different stitch. And from when I started knitting to today, even now I notice that there's a different way of writing increases and decreases, you know, that you know, it's not slip one, knit one, pass, slip stitch over. It's what at first it was SSK, and I'm thinking, what the heck's this SSK, until I realized, you know, it's just, for me, it's slip one, knit one, pass, slip stitch over. And you know, the terminology has changed as well over the years. But I think he's after watching his first tutorial for Clue 1, he is just such a fabulous teacher, and you can, you know, he does it in such a way that you could, whether you're an English thrower like I am, or you're continental, he kind of switches between the two, and he shows you different ways. You know, if you can't increase by picking up the ladder between the 2 stitches, he shows you an easier way. And so, you know, and it's good because beginners as well as experienced knitters are going to be able to do this. I mean,
Well,
I think so.
I know that your YouTube channel is basically like more about crochet. Are you gonna cover your knitting of the shawl in your channel?
Yes, I am. I've been I do an interview series where I have been interviewing crocheters and that, but the new year I am definitely I've been knitting all the time, you know. I mean, I called it my crochet nut to begin with, but then I found so many knitters out there that it just blew my mind, because knitting is my first love. I came to crocheting later on. I mean, it's only what, say 3 years, it's 3 years since I've been crocheting with yarn, because before, when I learned to crochet, I crocheted doilies, I crocheted with the very fine cotton. So for me, knitting is my plans for going forward on my channel as well, and I do a knitting podcast as well. So
Does Stephen inspire you as a YouTuber? Like, do you learn from him as far as YouTube goes?
I think I've learned from so many different people, both in crocheting and the knitting, you know. I think the more YouTube podcasters, I should say, that you watch, the more you learn. You know, I mean, when I joined the fiber community 3 years ago, I've learned so much in that time, and I think it's good as well, you know. There's a saying, you always learn something new every day, and it's very true, whether it's a little thing or it's something really big that's going to impact on you. And yeah, so
well, how are you enjoying my collaboration with Martin? What did you think about that?
Well, obviously I've not met Martin. I think it's really good, and he is so zany and funny. I actually come across Martin sometime earlier this year, and then I know about you with your Fiberchats and that, so you know, and I do watch them, and I think they're really interesting, especially one with, I think I first came across you when you did Stephen West, and I thought, because I was playing with the idea, I knew his make along was coming along, you know, his mystery knit along was coming along, and I thought, I want to know more about who Stephen West is, you know, other than what other people are saying about him. I want to know for myself.
Right.
And it's just amazing. And it's lovely for me to see male knitters, crocheters. It's nice to see the male, and there are quite a lot of them, aren't there, in this community, and what they contribute is really inspiring to us and to the younger generation as well, especially the young guys.
Are you planning to wear this shawl, or are you gonna give it as
Oh yes, I am going to wear this shawl. I'm going to wear this shawl with pride, I'm telling you.
Well, tell me how you discovered Stephen West for yourself.
I think it was from just watching other knitting YouTubers, and a lot of people that I watched that I learned about on your channel, like you know, Michael from Piece for Piece Crafts and Needles at the Ready, following their channels, and they do a lot of Stephen West patterns. So yeah, I think I kind of over time, like at first when I saw his stuff, I was like, man, that is wild. That's crazy. I was like, okay, that's nice. I don't know if that's for me. But then he just has so many patterns that it's eventually, you know, I started seeing different things, or I started seeing things in different colors, and it's like, okay, I could do that.
Well,
but I'm still relatively new.
Yeah, tell me about that. Tell me how you discovered knitting for yourself.
I first learned to knit, I think like in the mid 2000s. There was a phase where, I don't know, like everyone was knitting for some reason. We were all knitting scarves on straight needles and just
How were you learning
rectangles.
how to? Because that was like cool.
Yeah.
How did you learn? Like, were you on YouTube? Did you use books? Did you use...
At that time, I just learned from friends. I had a friend who's now my roommate who taught me, you know, how to knit, how to purl, how to cast on, how to bind off. And for a long time, that's all I knew. Until about a year ago, I started knitting more regularly. And then I was like, okay, I want to learn different things. I want to learn how to knit in the round. I want to learn how to make different, not just rectangles. So then that's where I really dived into YouTube.
When you watched that first clue come out, did you watch the whole video right away? Did you start knitting first? Like, what was your process?
Yeah, so actually what I did first, I read the pattern first, which I don't know that I would do that on the next clue. And then I watched the video. But I was like, I want to know, as soon as I woke up, I was like, I want to know what it is. So
what did you
I took in everything. The video helped because when I was reading the pattern, I was like, I don't understand what's going on. And then I watched it, I was like, okay, this is doable. There's a lot of casting on and binding off, and not sure how I'm gonna feel about that, but you know, I like the fact that it's creating, and I really like the loops and the braid. So yeah, I mean, Stephen does a good job of walking you through it, where it's like, okay, that's doable.
Well, have you tried this custom type before, or was it first time when you did this particular kind of custom?
Yeah, it was the first time doing what was it?
Cable custom?
An I-cord cast on. I've done I-cord edges and a cable cast on. So yeah, lots of new things already.
Right.
Yes.
Well, are you you told me that because you're a newer knitter, you consider yourself a slow knitter, and you're gonna like definitely fall behind.
Yes.
Does that stress you out?
A little bit. It's definitely been ups and downs on that. I am definitely behind, and I definitely am kind of like, okay, how long is this gonna take for me to finish? But trying not to get too discouraged about that.
How much have you done so far?
I have done, do you want to see?
Yep.
I have done, let's see, here are my notes. I am halfway through the second repeat.
I love your
So
colors.
I do too.
Yeah.
I am really excited about them.
What's
So
the pop gonna be?
the pop is this.
Ooh,
So turquoise. Yeah.
that's gonna be delicious.
Yeah.
Well,
So
so like, okay, guesstimate for me. How long do you think that took you?
so this I started it on Thursday. I know part of it is that I'm not someone who can knit all day. Like I'll knit for maybe 2 hours a day, maybe 3 or 4 on like a long day. But I think like last night I was watching a movie and it was I think maybe about an hour and a half, and like I only got through the half of a repeat. So
Right.
I don't know if that's, I mean, it's certainly not fast, but
Well, I
yeah.
also like, so I never timed myself like
Yeah.
before, but then Martin was talking about timing
Mhm.
himself, right? So I was like, well, if Martin is timing himself, I have to try to time myself. So I did it twice in this
Yeah.
clue. So the first time I did it was like very early on.
Mhm.
And I knitted 4 rows and it took me 47 minutes. So like pretty much where I am
Mhm.
now, right?
Mhm.
And then I timed myself towards the end of the clue, and it was taking me 31 minutes or 32 minutes per 4 rows, like half of the repeat.
Mhm.
It's like it does get faster as you memorize the pattern, and
Yeah.
you don't have to like constantly look at it and try to remember where you're supposed to increase and where to decrease.
Definitely.
So like don't despair. But also
Yeah.
like when you watch Steven's video, he said like at some point, like I was watching and rewatching it just to see like what other clues he might have dropped in the
Mhm.
first clue. And he was like, the second clue is gonna be easier, so don't give up on me yet. Like,
Yeah.
do you think you needed to hear that?
I mean, I do need to hear that. I think which is funny because I don't even remember hearing that when I watched the video. Uh, I think for me, it's not even that this clue is hard. It's just that it's time consuming.
It is time consuming. It's
Yeah.
a lot of knitting. I was actually surprised, and I told Martin
Mhm.
about that. Like because I remember knitting Starflake, and I remember like I knitted it after the MKAL, so I was
Mhm.
doing that like waiting for the next clue. But I
Yeah.
remember like flying through the first clue,
Yeah.
and then like the second was a little longer, the third longer. So I expected that this one like I'll be done in a day, and
Yeah.
no way anywhere that I could have been done in 1 day or in 2 days. It's like 3.5 was like really pushing it hard, basically.
Mhm.
So I was surprised by the amount of knitting there was. And I sort of like wonder if there is a discouraging effect on people who don't have all the time in the world to knit
Yeah.
because of that.
Yeah, I think so. I'd be really curious to hear what other people think about that too. But I know even just, you had posted on your Instagram, okay, where, I finished the clue, like where is everyone else? And it was encouraging to see that there were some other people who were also like, okay, I just got to the repeats, or I'm on the second repeat. But then there, you see all these other people that are,
I
halfway
sort
through
of
the repeats. And
funny because like I had this conversation with a friend today, and I said
hmm,
it's almost bothers me that it's like there is this almost toxic element to the MCAL just because of that, because you see how fast like others flying by,
yeah,
and it makes you feel like you're lacking. Even
yeah.
I mean, we all have lives. Some people work, some people have kids. Like,
Mhm,
there's different.
mhm.
We're all busy with our things, so you cannot like hope that everybody's sitting there knitting 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
It's like it's sort of like seeing it on social media. On one hand, you're inspired because you see so many different variations. On the other hand, it's almost like makes you feel unsure of your
Yeah,
skill.
you feel the pressure that it's like, oh, I've got to keep going. And yeah, which I think can be, I don't know, good or bad. There are pros and cons to that. Like on the one hand, Because there have definitely been moments, especially when I'm doing the cast-ons, where I'm like, do I really want to keep working on this? I think someone might be on. Let's see. But yes, the dog in the background. Can see him.
They had a lot of pet appearances in this.
Yes, they're always fun. But yeah, especially when I'm doing the cast-ons, where it's like, do I want to keep working on this right now? And in some ways, like knowing that like there are other people working on it, and it's like, okay, this is the time to focus on this, like does kind of push me to keep going a little bit. Whereas if I were doing it just on a random day, I might be like, no, I'm gonna work on something else, and who knows if I would pick it back up or not. But yeah, it definitely feels like I definitely feel the pressure.
I mean, I think it's like at this point it's becoming, I have a friend and he is training athletes to swim long distance. And he says it's never about physical strength and endurance. It's about like mental capacity of dealing with unpleasantness and dealing with difficulties. And I feel like this mystery knit along is sort of the same thing. Like every time you feel like, I don't know if I need to do it, I don't know if I can do it, you just like put it aside for 5 minutes, go have coffee or something, come back to it and do another row.
Yes.
I mean, is there like part of this mystery knit along that really makes you happy?
The colors. Yeah, the colors are making me happy, because then I look at it, I'm like, oh yeah, I like that. I want to keep going. I want to see how that turns out.
There you go. So I'll watch over you and I'll see how you're progressing. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. But I hope I hope we're gonna all finish it at some point, like, and enjoy it.
Yes, hopefully.
But the main thing is like to enjoy it, because like I feel like I have to like constantly remind myself that even though I do compete with Martin on some level, it's for fun.
Exactly.
It's not a real competition. And this week he's at advantage because I'm going to Rhinebeck for 3 days and I don't knit when I go away. So he has 3 days head start with me.
Yeah, but I'm sure you'll catch up, probably.
We'll see.